Hello, everyone. If you don't know who I am, my name is Adam Britt, and over the weekend, I set out to watch every Muppets movie that's been released since the original in 1979. I love the franchise, and I've started to watch the original series for the first time, as well as watching other Muppet shows that might not have been as well known. After finishing the 11th and final movie, I thought it'd be fun to rank the movies and discuss my thoughts about them in a video. So that's what I'm going to do. This video won't be pre-written past the intro, so I'll be talking about these movies strictly from the heart, so expect some slip-ups here and there. Before we begin, I want to briefly touch on the movies and describe my tier system, despite the fact that it's pretty self-explanatory. So, to describe the movies, we have the original theatrical trilogy from the 80s, the second theatrical trilogy from the 90s, the three direct-to-TV, direct-to-video movies that came out in the early 2000s, and then the two theatrical movies that came out in the early 2010s. So that's the movies out of the way, just describe the eras, and now let's get on to my tier system. So if you know about a tier list or you're familiar with them, you should probably know what each tier means generally, but I want to describe what I'm thinking about when I put a movie in each tier. So, S tier. S tier is a movie that exemplifies the Muppet magic. It's funny, witty, charming, and has all the makings of a great movie beyond its Muppet name. It's a great movie with the Muppets, and it's a great movie without the Muppets. These are the most iconic films. They're the best films of the bunch, and I truly recommend them to anyone, Muppet fan or otherwise. Then you have A tier. These are good movies. Great, I would even say. But they're lacking in one particular aspect or theme that would lend them to S tier, which means that they are missing one particular thing that really leaves them emotionally impactful, but they're still great movies, very fun. I would recommend them to most people, even non-Muppet fans as well. And then B tier. B tier movies, they're pretty good. They are definitely Muppet films that exemplify the Muppet styling, Muppet charm, but I don't know if I'd recommend them to non-Muppet fans. There are definitely movies that Muppet fans need to see, whoever they are, but they're not the greatest movies ever. They definitely have some flaws, but they're decent films nonetheless that definitely have the heart and soul of the Muppets franchise. Then you have C tier. C tier movies are not great. They're not bad per se, and they might even have some moments that really do feel like the old Muppets charm, but there's a lot of bad parts about the movies, and honestly, they're not very good. They're the movies that you might watch one time, be like, there were some funny parts, and then you have no desire to watch again. Unlike B, which you might watch again, even though it's not the greatest, but C, you really wouldn't want to watch again. And then the last tier I want to describe, D. This is the worst of the worst. These movies don't exemplify Muppet magic. I know I'm using that term a lot. They don't have the heart and soul of it. They're unfunny, boring, or just bad movies. A lot of combination of these qualities can lead to a D tier Muppet movie. And so I really feel like when I talk about these movies, I'm not going to be nice about it. Anyway, let's get into the film. So, starting with the original trilogy. Not that like the stories carry over, but just how the eras they were produced is what I'm using to define them. So, the original, The Muppet Movie. Obviously S tier. 1979, directed by Jim Frawley. This movie is iconic. It is so funny, so cleverly written, and so dynamic and experimental in its storytelling that it blows any other theatrical Muppet film out of the water, especially because it was made in 1979. The original Muppets show was still on at that time. It's a great family film, a great adult film, and a great kids film all in one because there are so many aspects that make the movie so unique and interesting to different groups. It's pioneered a lot of comedic aspects, especially in puppetry, but also in traditional comedy as well, through a lot of jokes that were either one, pioneered on the original show and made famous through the movie, or the movie made them themselves. It's constantly referenced, especially the Rainbow Connection and Moving Right Along. There are a lot of great songs, including the ones I just mentioned, and it honestly is a must-see for anyone. Honestly, I think it's a great film, regardless if you care or know about the Muppets. All right. I feel like I could say more, but I feel like you really need to see the original The Muppet Movie to get what I'm saying. It's just, honestly, such a classic. Film number 2, The Great Muppet Caper. Released in 1981, 2 years later, near the tail end of the Muppets show running. And we're going to put this one in A tier. It's the only Muppets film directed by the famous Jim Henson. It's a good movie. I would actually say it's a great film. However, it's just that. It's a great movie. It's very funny. It has a lot of witty dialogue, especially because they're in London. So, there's a lot of British humor that you wouldn't necessarily find in a lot of American movies. It also breaks the fourth wall a ton, which is super refreshing because the Muppets does it a lot, but they do it in such a unique way that it's really, really funny. But it doesn't have the magic of the Muppets movie. It's a great film. It's very enjoyable, very funny, but it doesn't have that elevating factor that makes it better than or equal to the Muppets movie. I think it's a must-see, but it doesn't have that iconic charm. It's just a great film. One thing I will say about both of these movies is that due to their release time, one of the biggest tenets of Muppet films is their guest stars and their celebrity cameos. These movies are, this makes me sound so annoying, but they're older. And so a lot of the guest stars are not as well known to newer or younger people. And thus, they might be lost on some younger people, but they are still really cool for a lot of older folks. Next, we have The Muppets Take Manhattan. This is the third film in the trilogy, the last one of the original trilogy, released in 1984, directed by the famed puppeteer as well, Frank Oz. And we're going to put it in A tier as well. It's not quite as good as Great Muppet Caper. I would even say it has a lot of more flaws than the Great Muppet Caper. But the songs are fantastic and the magic is there. This film is actually, I think, the worst of the three by far, but it's made up for the fact that it is just such a fun movie. It has kind of the same plot as the first movie, but it does it in a new setting, and I think that's one of the best things about Muppet films is the settings. The set pieces, the locales, and everything in between that make the movie fun to look at, regardless of what you're actually listening to or what you're hearing. It is a beautiful film in terms of just looking at it. It's very fun, colorful. I think the heart and the magic that comes from the Muppet stylings really make this film what it is. It's very good. Obviously has a lot of flaws that I'm looking past and putting it in A tier, but it's still a great movie, and I think it's very enjoyable. It's the one I would recommend the least to non-Muppet fans, but I still think you'll get a kick out of it if you watch it. All right, now we're on to the second 90s trilogy. We have A Muppet Christmas Carol. This is a B tier movie, okay? It's good. It has some really funny moments. It has Gonzo and Rizzo as Charles Dickens, and I don't remember who Rizzo plays, but they're a funny duo. Rizzo has some good jokes, but it doesn't really hold my interest. It's sad. It's a Christmas Carol told with Muppets, which is funny, but also not. I mean, there's a whole plot point about, Ebenezer Scrooge seeing the death of a disabled child, who in the movie is portrayed as Tiny Tim, Kermit the Frog's son. Kermit the Frog is a character from the novel, but he's still the son, and he passes away if Ebenezer doesn't change his ways, which, it's retelling of the story, but it's not fun like the Muppets. It's kind of, dark. Obviously it's not that bad, but it's just, I watch the Muppets to have fun, and the movie isn't fun to watch at all. It has some good moments, but if the movie's not fun to watch, why are you watching it? That's what I gotta say. So, as much as I like The Muppets Christmas Carol, I also don't like it because it's not fun to watch. It's a good movie, but it's not fun to watch. I think for its time, 1992, it was the first Muppets movie that had come out in, let's say, 8 years, I think, since 1984 in 1992. So, I feel like it wasn't a great introduction back to the Muppets characters, but, I feel like it could have been worse, and it does get worse. But Muppet Christmas Carol, it's decent, but it doesn't have what I love about Muppets, so it's lower on a very personal note. It's also just not as good as the other three, but it's okay. Next movie in the trilogy, Muppet Treasure Island, also B tier, but ahead of Muppet Christmas Carol. Coming out 4 years later, this is another retelling of a classic novel, Treasure Island with Muppets. It has a wonderful performance by Tim Curry as Long John Silver, and it's pretty cool. It is a pirate tale. It's literally the Treasure Island story. It's fun, it's magical, it's adventurous. It has Muppet characters. There are really funny jokes from Rizzo, especially. I think this is a standout movie from him. But other than that, it's just so-so. It's not an amazing Muppet film. It's not a must-watch by any means. The main kid actor is really annoying. Fozzie is kind of stupid, but way more stupid than he normally is, which honestly annoyed me, which is not usually the case because I like Fozzie's character. Um, Overall, I think it's okay. I think it's fun, and I would rather watch it over Christmas Carol because it actually has that fun element of a Muppets movie. But other than that, the music's kind of mediocre. It's just so-so. Like I said, it's a B-tier movie. It's, if you're a Muppets fan, definitely watch it. Definitely watch it, but it's not that great. And then last movie of the trilogy, of the second theatrical trilogy in the 90s. Released in 1999, the last Muppets movie released in theaters until 2011, Muppets from Space. This is a D-tier film. This film is terrible, okay? It's really bad. It's not funny. It's really boring. The only thing it has going for it is the concept. Gonzo, no one knows what he is. In Muppets, the lore, I guess is the word I'm going to use, he is a whatever. They don't know what species he is. The movie starts with a dream of him getting denied from Noah's Ark because they don't know what he is, and he doesn't have another female member of his species to keep him going. So the entire movie is this alien plot, which should be pretty funny, should be pretty unique, but it is boring. It doesn't have anything going for it. The music is nothing new. It's all rehashed from old funk music, which is a tenet of Muppets, using old music and singing along to it, but there's no heart, there's no soul for it, and it's just incredibly boring. The movie didn't need to be made. It doesn't feel like a Muppets movie, to be honest. I really dislike this film, especially because it was the last theatrical movie for a while, which I think is why I'm being so harsh on it, because it shouldn't be this bad. But it's a really bad movie. It's not funny, it's not charming, and it's honestly annoying. The only thing it has going for it is that it has a decent concept that they ruin, and it incorporated the Muppets Tonight characters from the 1996 series Muppets Tonight and introduced the new Muppets to the film universe, like Pepe and a couple other characters that are new from the Muppets Tonight show. Other than that, really no value to this. All right. Next, we got Kermit's the Swamp Years. This is the first movie that I know very few people have watched from the direct-to-TV series. Okay, this came out on ABC or something. It's very, very mediocre. It's not a good movie. Like, it's just bad. Like, it's a TV movie. What do you expect? The budget's not there. There are 3 Muppets in the entire movie that are, like, interesting. Or 4, I should say. And then there are, like, a couple, like, rehashed, like, frog and dog puppets and a snake puppet. Other than that, you follow young Kermit, his friend Croaker, and their journey to rescue their toad friend Goggles, and some other toad. No, he's a frog, but I don't remember his name. It's honestly pretty boring. There's no joy in it. You only see Kermit. Kermit is the only familiar character. And it has a really dumb plot. It's really stupid. But not like Muppets funny stupid. It's just not good. It's just not interesting. There's a CG fly, like a computer-generated fly, which is dumb. And there's also a dog that talks, but it's not a Muppet. It's just a normal dog, which is, like, the whole point is not that it doesn't make any sense. It kind of just feels like the filmmakers did whatever they wanted. But it did make me laugh a couple times, and there's, like, 1 or 2 songs that are kind of funny. Like, they're pretty, like, catchy. So I have to put it over Muppets from Space because I got more enjoyment out of it. Even though I think technically it's, like, not as good of a well-made film as Muppets from Space, but I got more enjoyment out of it because at least they tried in parts, unlike Muppets from Space. All right. Next film on the list is A Very Merry Muppet Christmas, the second Muppet Christmas movie, and it's in C tier. Here's why. So A Very Merry Muppet Christmas is a decent movie. Like, it's not good, and I wouldn't recommend you watch it, but it has a good bit of charm to it that the other direct-to-TV movies I don't think have. There are a lot more funny jokes. I think the retelling of the It's a Wonderful Life story is pretty interesting. The part with the angels is kind of weird because you have Whoopi Goldberg, who is either God or an angel, either one, and she's watching over Kermit. And then you have this other angel played by David Arquette, who is a wrestler of all things. And he's like, oh, I gotta go save Kermit. It's really weird, but the movie's kind of funny. And also there's a part where David Arquette, the angel guy, he plays an angel called Daniel. He shows Kermit what life would be like in New York if he wasn't ever born. And there's actually a scene, and this movie came out in 2002, mind you, okay? Both this and Kermit Swamp Years came out in 2002, late 2002, this movie did. He shows Kermit a version of New York where he'd never been born, and the Twin Towers are still standing. So take with that what you will, despite the fact this movie came out months later than the tragic event that happened 9/11. In a reality where Kermit was never born, 9/11 didn't happen. So take with that what you will. I think that's really funny, but overall, this movie has its charm, but I wouldn't watch it. It's not that good, but it has some moments. And then the last direct-to-TV movie that came out and then went on DVD was the Muppet Wizard of Oz. Okay, this movie is not good. It's not interesting. It's much too long on the DVD version, and overall, it has some funny moments, particularly with the Wizard of Oz references and stuff, obviously, as it's going through the story. But it's really just incessantly boring. It's not an interesting film. I put it above Kermit Swamp Years because I liked it a bit more, and there's also a Quentin Tarantino cameo that is really out of place, and it's funny. I don't know if it's funny because Quentin's funny in the cameo, but it's funny. I'll say that. I don't know why, but it's very enjoyable. And like I said, it's okay. It's the best of the D tiers, but it's not a good movie. Like I'll clarify. It's a Very Muppet Christmas is a very decent film. It's not great. It's not good. It's very decent. But all the D tier films I think are truly bad, but they have some redeeming qualities about them that, you know, if you were forced to watch them, you wouldn't hate them. Other than Muppets from Space, I hate that movie, but I don't think it's truly worse enough to put it in another tier. So, if that helps put it in perspective. But yeah, other than that, Muppets Wizard of Oz, it follows the story just as well. Actually, no, it doesn't follow the story at all. But it has Ashanti in it, so if you like that, Queen Latifah, pretty neat, I guess. I don't know. It's really boring, and I kind of forgot everything except for the Quentin Tarantino cameo. Pretty fun. Okay, last two films. We have the theatrical films. We have The Muppets in 2011, and then The Muppets Most Wanted in 2014. So we're going to start with The Muppets 2011, and it gets the awarded S tier. This movie is great, especially for a revival. You can tell they really put their heart and soul into this. Jason Segel and the team, you can tell they were really big Muppets fans because this movie feels just like the original The Muppets movie. It's not quite as good. It's not quite as groundbreaking or innovative, obviously, but it does a lot of unique things with the staging, with the music, with the characters, with the comedy. It is ever dynamic in how it presents things, and I think that's very funny. It's very commendable, and it's also just good filmmaking. There's a lot of satire on traditional TV movie comedies. It's not a TV movie, it's theatrical, but there's a lot of satire on movie musicals and stuff like that, which I think is very funny. And it still keeps that Muppets charm to it that I think really helps define a lot of the movies in this upper tier, you know? Especially the stuff that you get like from the original show as well. I feel like it's honestly such a good revival. It's honestly such a good revival, and I feel like it really gives across that Muppets heart and that Muppets energy while still being new and fresh, while also incorporating elements of the old. So it's its new thing, but it still has that heart. You know, it doesn't abandon it. It grows on it and improves. And then last but not least, I know I'm not doing much transition between the movies, but I don't want to talk forever. Is The Muppets Most Wanted, okay? We're going to put this one in A tier, behind The Great Muppet Caper. The reason is, it's a great movie. It's very funny. It lacks the same charm that the first movie of its ilk did. Same way The Great Muppet Caper lacked the charm that lacked that particular magic thing that propels the original Muppet movie to S tier. But it still keeps that same love and care that the revival did and brings it to a new, more spy world tour oriented plot. It's funny. Ricky Gervais is funny. Tina Fey is funny. It has a lot of great guest stars. One thing I will say is that the revival movies they really keep the guest star thing going, and it's great. Every Muppet movie has guest stars, even the TV movies, but I feel like the original three and the revivals are the best when it comes to guest stars, and Tim Curry from Treasure Island. But the guest star and the cameo appearances are just wonderful. Other than that, I don't have much to say about Muppets Most Wanted. It's just a good film. It's a Muppet movie, so obviously think about it that way. But it's a good movie. So, I know that was a weird transition, but I think that's about wraps up what I wanted to talk about with the Muppets movies. This is my ranking. You have the original Muppet movie and the Muppets at S. You have The Great Muppet Caper, Muppets Most Wanted, and The Muppets Take Manhattan at A. Muppet Treasure Island, The Muppet Christmas Carol at B. I'm not going to read the whole Christmas title at C. And then Wizard of Oz, Kermit, and Muppets from Space at D. So that's the video. I know a lot of you probably don't have much discussion to do because I don't know if you've seen these movies, but if you have, let me know. Put it down in the comments, I guess. I don't know how people do this YouTube thing. And yeah, also, I really truly wonder how many times I've said Muppet in this video. Goodbye.